we're doing it again. How's it going on, guys and girls? Welcome back to another video of Burnt Aquila painting. My name is Graham and today we're painting Necrons from the Indominus box set. As some of you know already, this is my second attempt at speed painting. My first attempt, I tried to paint a miniature in just half an hour, start to finish. If you haven't seen that video already, I recommend going and watching that one first, because a lot of the lessons that I learned in that video I actually put into practice here. Now, spoiler alert, so you have been warned. I didn't actually manage to complete it. I ran over time by about 7 minutes. Fast forward today, I have 10 Necron warriors ready and waiting to break that 30-minute timer once again. Like in my first video, I've set out some ground rules. Number 1, half an hour per mini. Number 2, bases are textured beforehand. And number 3, base rims are not included in the time frame. On top of the 3 rules from last time, I've also not primed the miniature this time, and I've included that into the 5-hour timer. Why? Because I'm priming in black, and I felt like the black base coat is integral to the overall look and finish of these Necrons. So there is something I wanted to do before we start painting that I feel is one of the most important lessons that I learned from the previous video, and that is planning and time management. I decided beforehand what I wanted the finished model to look like, and from there wrote out a step-by-step plan on how to achieve that scheme. While doing this, I had a rough time frame for each section. As long as I kept to that schedule, I felt I had a pretty good chance of beating the clock. Unlike my last foray into speed painting, this time around I felt a lot more confident. With the knowledge from previously, a written out plan, and I knew what I was letting myself in for, I felt ready and determined instead of freaked out and anxious. And so, the game was afoot! I started by priming the bases and the minis all over with black primer. Now, the reason why I included the priming stage in this go around is because we're going to be overbrushing a steel colour over the whole mini. This keeps the recesses really dark while keeping a really good metallic look. And plus, it's really quick. If you want to know more about priming, I have a video all about it in my basic brush skills playlist. Go check it out. I'll put it in the cards and in a link in the description below. The second lesson I learned from my first attempt at speed painting was making sure that all your equipment is clean and working properly before you start. So the day before, I stripped down my airbrush, cleaned it properly and making sure it was working at 100%. Priming took a little longer than I'd planned, but I wasn't too worried at this stage. Next, we needed to establish the base colour of the miniatures, and as I'm painting them in the Sautek Dynasty colours, a little throwback to my childhood, I took a steel colour, in this case lead belcher, and overbrushed the whole model with a large brush. Now, what is overbrushing? Overbrushing is basically a heavy dry brushing technique. So you don't take as much paint off your brush when you're rubbing off the paint. So you don't just get the edges and razors of the mini you're dry brushing, you get those flat areas as well. Overbrushing is great for metallics and when you want to work quickly. You still get a texture to the model, but with metallics I feel this adds to the steel look I'm going for. A little tip here is to use a big soft brush. It really helps with any dry or overbrushing techniques. Personally, I think it looks best with a steel colour or a silver, but this technique can be used with any colour you like. Once the overbrushing was done, I go around with each mini and just touch up the parts I didn't like or the overbrushing couldn't reach, just neatening up those armour panels. Next we move on to the bases. Now I'm giving my minis and the bases an overall black wash. So it makes sense to base coat the bases now and then do the wash stage together. It's in parts like these where you can really speed up your painting, planning out what sections you can do together. If we can cut corners properly now, then in theory, you're creating time for more complicated techniques down the road, when time is more at a premium. For the bases, all I did was a base coat in brown for the earth and the grey for the rocks. Don't worry, I know they look stark now, but when they're all finished, they'll all be tied together. Once it was dry, I slapped on that black wash. For this, I had some homemade wash left over from my scarabs. I used that on my bases and the shop bought wash on my miniatures themselves, making sure that the wash didn't pool on places on the model I didn't want. If you want to see how I made that homemade wash, let me know in the comments. To be fair, I couldn't actually tell the difference between the homemade wash and the shop bought after it had dried, so I'm pretty proud of it actually. Let me know if you can see the difference. At this point, I really wanted to add a blue glaze to the armor panels just to give it a little bit more of a two-tone effect. I actually got this idea from a couple of you guys who mentioned it on my Instagram on my scarabs. That was actually the reflection of the blue sky from the window of my painting table. But I like the idea so much that I'm going to give it a go now and incorporate that into my army. However, this is where we started to waste some precious time. I had a couple of ways of doing this in my head. One, it was just a glaze of blue shade on the armor panels. Two, mix the blue shade in with a bright silver and then glaze. I also tried to mix in a light blue with the silver, but the less we talk about that, the better. It didn't go well. The shade on its own looked awful. It just looked like we did a dodgy thin shade on the model, so I quickly scrapped that and moved on to the second idea. This was exactly what I was going for, but there was a problem, and the problem was time. Working out how I'd achieve this look with the two ideas, I had wasted almost 20 minutes, far too much time for my liking, and on top of that the glazing for the blue and bright silver was going to take well over an hour. Applying layer upon layer of glaze to each mini wasn't going to work, so I scrapped it. Our goal here is to get a great looking mini, yes, but within that half an hour time limit. With that in mind, I gave each model a heavy dry brush with the bright silver from top down to give it a quick zenithal highlight instead. I was really happy with the effect, to be honest. It was subtle but obvious enough that the miniatures weren't just base coated and shaded. Next on the list was the weapons. To try and get some time back, I gave myself half an hour to get this done, and I managed to get it done with less than a minute to go on the timer, so I didn't really get that much time back. At this point, I was sick of looking at these metal mindless morons, so I moved on to the bases. All of my Necron army are going to have snowy bases. That's what I'm going to go for here.
But Graham, wouldn't it be quicker to do normal base?
Yep, but I'm a glutton for punishment. So I started by dry brushing a light orange brown over the earth parts of the base, but not the stone. I started using a large soft brush, but I didn't like the texture it was giving me. I switched it out for a smaller flat-headed brush that I made myself by cutting the end off. It's not perfect, but it does the job. Once that was dry, I washed the stone with blue and around the stones with a sepia wash. Now, the reason why I washed the stones with a blue shade is because stone isn't just black, grey or white. It's a multitude of colours, so I wanted to add a little bit of realism to these rocks. Next, I gave the whole base a quick dry brush with an off-white. Now, you could leave these there, but as I said before, I'm a glutton for punishment. So after forgetting the tufts and going straight on with the snow effects on the first base, because I'm an idiot, I went back and put tufts on all the bases using tweezers to place them on the base, and nail scissors to cut them into shape if they're too big. Once that was done, I came back with the snow effects. I've only used these snow effects once before, and I absolutely love it. It's so easy to use and it looks great. Games Workshop has a great 2 to 3 minute video on YouTube, how to use their snow effects. All I did was follow their steps to the letter, so I'll put a link to that video below. Also, it's a good opportunity to see our Lord and Saviour Duncan Rhodes in his Warhammer t-shirt. You know, for posterity and nostalgia reasons. After that, your snow on the bases were complete. Now to give our Necron warriors some character by giving them a good green plasma go on their weapons, chests and eyes. And yet again, I'm going to be wasting more time. I wanted to give these guys a little bit more character than just glowy eyes and a glowy gun. So I went for a glowing in the rib cage and the spine in their back, just to give them that kind of inner glow kind of look. First off, I added green shade on its own to the eyes, chest and spine, and after a few layers I hated it. It looked shoddy, and in the recesses where it was black you couldn't see the green at all. So I went with a base coat of white and then the green wash, a bit like a contrast paint. Needless to say, that didn't work. That ended up looking really patchy and really bad. So I went for the longer but proven approach. Base the glowing areas in a dark green and then highlight with a yellow green. But it was at this point where I was coming up to the hour mark and I was starting to worry that I didn't have enough time to finish. I really wanted to get these guys done in 5 hours. And so the 5-hour mark had hit. I only had 5 guys completed. The other 5 only had that highlight on the plasma go to go. So instead of giving myself an extra hour like in the first video, I decided to put on a stopwatch and just see how long it took me to get them finished. I was so gutted I didn't get these little guys done in 5 hours, but it's not all bad. I managed to complete the challenge far quicker than my first attempt. I did find out that I still have quite a lot to learn when it comes to speed painting. I thought I had a solid plan at the start, but I quickly found out that in certain parts I wasn't quite prepared and ended up in partaking in some trial and error. What I could have done to combat this is done a test model first to solidify every single part of the process, completely eliminating that trial and error. Also, while editing this footage, I realised I missed out the pipes and the weapons, because I'm an idiot. A couple of bits I would have loved to have done, but I didn't have enough time. One, that blue glaze, I think it looks incredible, and I think I'm definitely going to be doing this in the future. Just with my time constraints, I wasn't going to get that done, and I wanted to get these miniatures as close to finished as I possibly could within that 5-hour timer. 2, improve the plasma glow. I think it looks a little bit scruffy, and I know I can do a lot better, so I'm going to take the time just to refine those plasma glows in the eyes, the guns, and the spine and the chest, and add a little yellow highlight in there as well, just to up that contrast. And 3, paint the damn pipes! Ugh! So it is that time. I finished these 10 Necron warriors in 5 hours, 18 minutes and 52 seconds. Not too bad, I don't think. Just to put it into a little bit of perspective, that's 46 minutes and 14 seconds faster than in my first video. So, after the maths, how long did it take me to paint each miniature? It took me 32 minutes and 25 seconds per mini. I was so close, but I still think it's an achievement to get 10 miniatures done in that time. Now, if this video has inspired you to give the speed painting challenge a go, I'd love to know what you did and how long it took you guys to finish. So upload it to Instagram, use the hashtag #BurnedAquila_speedpainting, and I look forward to seeing what you guys and girls managed to do. But alas, that's all from me in this video. Leave a comment down below about your thoughts on my speed painting challenge. Remember to like and subscribe for more at @BurnedAquila_painting. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything else I do in the future, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!